Some zucchini growing advice sounds incredibly confident. Remove most of the leaves. Add more fertilizer. Let the fruit grow as large as possible. Powdery mildew means the plant is finished. The problem is that confident advice is not always good advice. And with zucchini, following the wrong tip can leave you with enormous leaves, damaged plants, yellow baby fruits, and somehow only one zucchini hiding underneath everything. So today, we are breaking down 5 common zucchini growing tips I would ignore, what you should do instead, and how to keep your plants producing for longer. Because zucchini may be easy to grow, but growing it well requires knowing when to help the plant and when to stop interfering. Chapter 1. Let zucchini grow as large as possible. The first piece of advice I would ignore is leave zucchini on the plant so they can grow as large as possible. No, unless you need a doorstop. A zucchini can grow surprisingly quickly. A fruit that looks perfectly normal today may look like a small submarine 2 days later. Bigger does not always mean better. Very large zucchini often become more watery, more fibrous, and much seedier. The skin may become tougher, and the flavor can become less delicate. Large zucchini are not necessarily useless. You can still grate them into cakes, soups, fritters, sauces, or use them for stuffed zucchini. But for fresh cooking, smaller fruits are usually better. For many varieties, harvesting at around 15 to 20 centimeters gives you tender skin, smaller seeds, and a better texture. The other reason to harvest regularly is production. A mature fruit left on the plant is full of developing seeds. Once the plant begins putting energy into those seeds, it may reduce the amount of energy going into new flowers and new fruits. The plant is trying to reproduce. You are trying to make dinner. These goals are not always the same. Check your plants regularly, especially during warm weather. Zucchini can grow much faster than people expect. And do not only look from above. Lift the leaves carefully and check near the center of the plant. Zucchini fruit can hide under those large leaves until it has developed its own postcode. The better advice is simple. Pick young. Pick regularly. And remember that the best zucchini is not always the biggest zucchini. The second piece of bad advice is remove lots of zucchini leaves to improve airflow. This advice contains a small amount of truth, which makes it more dangerous. Yes, zucchini plants benefit from airflow. And yes, removing certain leaves can help. Old leaves resting on wet soil can become damaged. Yellowing leaves are no longer working efficiently. Leaves with serious disease or physical damage may also be worth removing. But that does not mean you should strip the plant bare. Those large zucchini leaves are the plant's solar panels. They capture sunlight and use it to produce the energy needed for roots, flowers, and fruit. If you remove too many healthy leaves at once, the plant loses a large part of its energy-producing system. A naked zucchini plant is not clever pruning. It is a stressed stick with flowers. Instead of asking, how many leaves can I remove? Ask, does this particular leaf need to be removed? Start with leaves that are yellow, broken, heavily diseased, or lying directly against the soil. Remove them with clean scissors or secateurs. Cut the stem close to the base without damaging the main crown. Avoid tearing leaves off by hand because a rough tear can damage the plant and create a larger wound. Also, do not remove 10 leaves in one dramatic afternoon just because the plant looks crowded. Prune gradually. The plant should still have plenty of healthy green leaves left after you finish. Airflow is not only created through pruning, plant spacing matters too. Zucchini plants become much larger than their seedlings suggest. If several plants are packed together, even aggressive pruning may not fully fix the problem. Give each plant enough space from the beginning, guide leaves away from neighboring plants when possible, and remove only what is genuinely causing a problem. Good pruning should help the plant continue growing. It should not make the plant wonder what happened while it was sleeping. The third piece of advice I would ignore is, if a small zucchini turns yellow, it must be rotting. Not always. Sometimes the fruit is damaged or affected by disease, but one of the most common reasons a tiny zucchini yellows, shrivels, and falls from the plant is poor pollination. Zucchini plants produce separate male and female flowers. Male flowers grow on long, thin stems. Female flowers have a small, immature zucchini directly behind the flower. That tiny zucchini has already formed before the flower opens, but it still needs successful pollination to continue developing. A pollinator needs to carry pollen from a male flower to a female flower. If that does not happen, or not enough pollen reaches the female flower, the tiny fruit may stop growing. It then turns yellow, shrivels, and eventually falls off. This does not automatically mean the plant is unhealthy. It may simply mean the flower was not pollinated properly. You can improve pollination by growing flowering plants nearby and avoiding insecticides around open flowers. You can also hand pollinate. Do this in the morning when the flowers are open. Find a fresh male flower, remove the petals carefully, and gently touch the pollen-covered center to the center of a female flower. You can also transfer pollen with a small, soft brush. Congratulations! You are now a bee with responsibilities. Do not panic if the first few female fruits fail. Young zucchini plants often produce male flowers before producing many female flowers. This can make early pollination difficult because the right flowers are not always open at the same time. As the plant matures, flower production often becomes more balanced. However, if many baby fruits continue failing, also check for temperature stress, irregular watering, root problems, or a lack of pollinator activity. A single yellow fruit is not always a disaster, but repeated yellow fruits are the plant telling you to investigate. The fourth piece of advice I would ignore is add more fertilizer if you want more zucchini. More fertilizer does not automatically mean more fruit. In fact, too much nitrogen can create the opposite result. Nitrogen encourages leafy growth. Zucchini needs nitrogen, but excessive amounts can produce enormous green leaves while flower and fruit production remains disappointing. Beautiful jungle, limited dinner. This is especially common when people repeatedly apply high nitrogen fertilizer or add rich feed without checking whether the plant actually needs it. A plant with large, dark green leaves but very few flowers may already be receiving plenty of nitrogen. Adding more will not necessarily convince it to produce fruit. Instead, focus on balanced nutrition. The plant needs nitrogen for growth, but it also needs nutrients such as phosphorus and potassium to support roots, flowers, and fruit development. Follow the instructions on your fertilizer rather than assuming twice as much food creates twice as many zucchini. It does not. Healthy soil also matters. Compost can improve soil structure and provide nutrients gradually. Consistent moisture helps the plant absorb those nutrients. Mulch can reduce moisture swings and protect shallow roots. Before reaching for another bottle of fertilizer, check the full growing conditions. Is the plant receiving enough sunlight? Is the soil staying waterlogged? Is the plant being watered consistently? Are flowers opening but failing to produce fruit? Is the plant overcrowded? Fertilizer cannot repair poor pollination, it cannot replace sunlight, and it cannot solve damaged roots. Feed the plant according to its needs, not according to your level of impatience. The fifth piece of advice I would ignore is powdery mildew means the zucchini plant is finished. Powdery mildew is extremely common on zucchini and other squash plants. It usually appears as pale or white powdery patches across the leaves. A severe infection can reduce photosynthesis, weaken the plant, and shorten the productive season. But a few affected leaves do not automatically mean the entire plant needs to be removed. Start by checking whether it is actually powdery mildew. Some zucchini varieties naturally have silver or pale markings on their leaves. These markings are usually part of the leaf pattern and do not wipe away like powder. True powdery mildew often begins in separate patches and gradually spreads across the leaf surface. Remove the worst affected leaves early, especially if they are already yellowing or no longer contributing much to the plant. Improve spacing and airflow around the plant. Water near the base instead of repeatedly wetting the foliage. Try to water early enough that any splashed leaves can dry quickly. But once again, do not remove every leaf. Final thoughts. The problem with simple gardening advice is that plants do not always behave in simple ways. A yellow baby zucchini is not automatically rot. A large plant does not automatically need more fertilizer. A crowded plant does not need every leaf removed. And one patch of powdery mildew does not automatically mean the season is over. Good zucchini growing is mostly about balance. Pick the fruits young and regularly. Prune damaged leaves, but keep enough healthy foliage. Support pollination when necessary. Feed the plant without pushing excessive leafy growth. And investigate problems before applying a random solution. Zucchini is easy to grow, but growing it well means knowing what to pick, what to prune, what to leave, and when to stop helping too much. And never trust a zucchini leaf that claims nothing is hiding underneath it. Follow Strong Echo for more practical growing tips based on what we are learning in our own garden. You do not need a perfect garden to grow great food. Start, observe, learn, and improve. You can grow it.